Welcome to chapter 1 of A Soldier's Story. So this is a story of how I even got into the Army. So all of my life, I never wanted to be in the Army. I never wanted anything to do with the military. I grew up in a military household, but I was always into sports. Truth be told, my brother was the one who was always playing Army, who was always in the woods, who loved hunting and all that stuff. Not me. I didn't want anything to do with it. And all the way throughout high school, all I did was play sports. And I was really good, not to toot my own horn, but I was going places, all conference player of the year, multiple years in a row, defensive player of the year. I was doing well, and my teachers thought I was doing well. I was what you would call a blue chip a blue chip player back in the day. And, I was going places. But what I didn't know was I was an introvert. And what I didn't know was how do I handle daily pressures of success and people depending on whether I was going to make it or not, or pushing me beyond my limits of being comfortable. And I essentially imploded my senior year. And then when it was time to go to camp, to spring camp and get ready for the season, I didn't go. And I essentially threw away my senior year. I remember my brother coming and saying, "Hey, the coaches are looking for you. What are you going to do?" And I didn't go. And, long story short, my high school won the 5A state championship that year for the state of Florida. And, anybody who was anybody went to a big school and ended up doing their thing. And that's kind of where my story begins, right, as high school ends. I was working in a warehouse and sweeping floors, stocking shelves, typical warehouse duties. And the warehouse manager's name was John. And John had just retired 20 years out of the Marine Corps. And he used to get on me all the time, like, "JD, man, like, what are you gonna do with your life? Why are you wasting your time here?" And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do. And, essentially he was like, "Why don't you go in the military?" And I was like dead set against it. Like, it wasn't for me. I didn't want to do it. And, he was like, "Whatever," and this went on for a few weeks. And one day I scraped up enough change to go and have lunch over at my then girlfriend's house. And I went over there and a recruiter was there talking to her. And I came through the door and, civilian jobs, you only got 30 minutes to eat, right? So it ain't no hour and a half like the Army, but he's there and I'm like trying to eat. And he's like, "So what do you do? What are you doing?" I was like, "Look, man, I'm not interested, blah, blah, blah." And, he was like, "Just give me 2 minutes, this and that, let me tell you about what we're doing here and the opportunities that are presenting itself." And I wasn't interested, but I was like, "Look, if you can tell me while I eat, you got me, right? Like, I'll listen. But beyond that, when I'm done, I'm out." And he was like, "Fair enough." And an hour goes by and he's still yapping. I'm sitting there like, what the hell? I gotta go. And I left. Right? I just left. I was like, "Nah, I'm good. I got a job. I'm good." And I get back to the shop. John is furious. "Where the hell have you been? What is going on? Blah, blah, blah." I was like, "Look, I'm sorry. The damn recruiter was there where I was having lunch and he wouldn't stop talking. And, I was kept telling him I was getting out of there. I'm getting out of there." And he was like, "Well, what'd you say?" I told him I was good. I got a job, and he was like, "Bullshit. You're fired. Get out of here. Go see that recruiter and go get you a real job." I was like, "What? You can't do that." He was like, "I can and I did, and you'll thank me later." And really didn't know if he was serious or not, but he was serious. He was like, you can pick your check up on Friday. Go back to the recruiter's office. And I was confused, because I was like, you're forcing me to do something I didn't want to do. My dad is in the military. He's always pushed the military. It's just never been for me, at least I thought. And so I go home and, I talk to my dad about it. He's like, no, that's great. I can take you down to the Air Force recruiter. I'll go in uniform. And my dad is an Air Force combat controller. All right. So if you don't know what a combat controller is, Google it. All right. But, he was like, you can do my job. I'll get you set up, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, fine, whatever. We'll go down there. He was like, cool, I'll drive. Let me do the talking. I got this. And a couple weeks go by, we finally get down to the recruiter's office. And I'll never forget it. The Air Force recruiter is a female. She was sitting there eating lunch. And when we walked through the door, she didn't even lift her head up. Didn't even look, just head down the whole time, right? And he's in uniform and, civilian clothes or whatever. And he was like, my son wants to join the Air Force. What does he need to do? Again, she didn't even look up. She just kept eating. I got 3 questions. He was like, what are they? Did he graduate high school? Yes. Has he ever been arrested? No. Does he have any tattoos? Yes. We don't want him. He was like, what? She was like, yeah, we can't use them. There's no waivers. We're not taking him. He wants to be a combat controller. And at this point, I don't even know what a combat controller is, right? So he's adamant, like, no, we need him. She's like, we can't use him. We can't take him. There's no waivers. It's non-negotiable. Go see the Army, go see the Marines. They'll take him. And I was like, I ain't doing the Marines, but maybe I'll go see the Army. And, lo and behold, obviously the Army was like, yeah, we'll take you. No big deal. What's your ASVAB score? I was like, I don't even know what that is, because I never planned to go into the Army. So I never took the ASVAB in high school. And here I am 6 months after graduation, he was like, well, we need to get you in. Let's do a practice, this and that. He was like, let's get the ball rolling. He didn't want to lose that momentum on me. And he was like, fine. I took the test, and he was like, yeah, you should do well. We'll schedule you for the real one. Here, study up or whatever. He gave me this book like that thick. And I'm like, I ain't reading this crap, right? And, I talked to my cousin, and he was like, hey, we can go in together. Because obviously the recruiter was like, hey, you got anybody else that, want to get in? Send them my way. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll talk to some people. So we were going to come in on the buddy program. And, I brought him down, and he worked it out. And then we were going to take the ASVAB together. And it's on a Saturday at like 7:30 in the morning. You're a high school kid. Like, you don't want to get up until 6 o'clock in the morning, drive an hour to go take this test that you don't even care about, right? And for a job that you don't even want. And needless to say, we didn't do well, right? I barely passed. I think I got like a 31 on it. Like, it was barely scraping by. My cousin didn't pass. And he was like, hey, man, why don't you just wait? I got 6 months. I could take it again, then we could still go. And I didn't. I took off and I left. And I only had 3 jobs. 3 jobs available based on those scores. It was artillery, helicopter mechanic, because my mechanic skills were good, and watercraft operator. So I chose watercraft operations because growing up in Florida, I always grew up on the water. I grew up on boats. I knew all about them. And he was like, yeah, man, you'll just be driving boats and it's going to be easy. It's super easy. You're just fishing and tanning all day. And I was like, man, I can get with that. That's cool. Where is it at? Oh, you go to Virginia, Hawaii, you'll go to Panama, you know, all these cool places like being in the Navy, but you get to wear cool uniforms that the Army wears. And I was like, all right, man, you ain't got to sell it. I don't really care about that. But the boat thing does sound good because, you know, one of my childhood dreams was being a charter boat captain. Just, you know, Destin, Florida, that's the fishing capital of the world, right? So I was cool with that. Cool, I'll join. I'll do that. And I go to basic training in South Carolina. What I didn't know is they put us all in like a 16-pack van, and this is the 90s. This is the 90s, and the windows don't open. The van driver, this old boy from Alabama, because we were in Montgomery, Alabama, chain smoking cigarettes from Montgomery, Alabama to Columbia, South Carolina. We fall out of the van when we get there to Jackson, and it was just like, it looked like Cheech and Chong, right? Like smoke just coming out, and the drill sergeants were there to meet us. Like, what the hell? Everybody smells like smoke. That's contraband. You can't do that here. You got to give that up, blah, blah. And it wasn't even us, right? It was the van driver, you know? And that's how that started. You know, we get to basic training, well, replacement, reception, and it was cool. Like, they let us sleep in. You know, we were eating good. Like, nobody was yelling and screaming. I was like, this is gravy. This is easy. And then a week or so later, the buses pull up, and these drill sergeants start running off and start all this yelling and screaming. And this, I was like, oh, here we go, right? And you know, honestly, basic training was pretty easy. I mean, I was the first person to get smoked. Our drill sergeants didn't allow boots in the bay, so we had to take our boots off before we entered. And you know, on day one, I'm that private, like showing up with white socks on. So obviously they made an example, and whatever. I learned not to wear white socks. I would wear dirty brown socks or black socks before I wore clean white socks, if that even makes sense. But that's what I did. And, you know, get through basic, you know, really wasn't a big deal. Being athletic and, you know, growing up playing team sports, like being a good teammate and playing my role and doing my part was easy. The physical piece was easy. Obviously the mental games, not used to being away and, you know, kind of being on your own. That plays its part, it plays its toll, and I think everybody goes through that, you know, where they have that moment when they're like, did I make the right damn decision? Like, what am I doing here? And, you know, in the end, when you graduate, you know, you kind of have that feeling of accomplishment. And I really needed a win, you know, at that time. While all my buddies were playing ball in big colleges, you know, I'm ball-headed playing Army. So that was a good win. And then I went to Virginia, Fort Eustis, and I shortly found out why they called it Fort Useless back in the day. It wasn't a great place. It was the home of the Transportation Corps at the time. Now it's like the home of TRADOC and some other stuff. All the helicopter mechanics there, but the watercraft operators, deck side and engine side. I was an 88 kilo deck side boat driver. Like, legit, that's what I did. Like, he didn't lie. And you know, I was really good at what I did because I just grew up on the water driving boats. You know, that's what I did. So I really enjoyed it. AIT there was only like 4 weeks. Wasn't a big deal. But the first sergeant there made me the student first sergeant. I guess he saw potential. I did really well. You know, when I'm given a task, I'm focused on it. I'll get it done. I execute well. And he liked that, I had a natural leadership ability about myself, and people just naturally followed what I was doing. So they recognized really early on that I could help shape and help keep the other privates in line and do that part. So they made me the student first sergeant while I was there, and worked out for me. Again, introverted. I didn't really like being out front, but I was tasked to do that, and that's what I did. AIT was only like 4 weeks long, super easy. It wasn't until I graduated from AIT and went to my first unit that the realization of my decision started to set in. So I graduated in December of 1996. I'll be doing no math, right? But the unit was in the field. Again, this is a boat unit, but they were actually in the woods. I get out there, and it's just a Humvee, right? And I was supposed to go on leave. So they were supposed to just take me out there, and then I was supposed to meet everybody, say hey, and then go back, get a room, and then stay the night, and then fly out the next day to go home for leave. And I get out there, and they're unloading the bags from the trucks, and there's this big long truck. It's called a 916. It's like a tractor trailer, flatbed with like sidewalls, and all the bags are just kind of stacked up in there, right? And I'll never forget this dude's name and his face, but I don't remember who brought me out there, but he was like, hey, this is Private Howard, this your platoon sergeant first class Smith. And Smith looks at me. He's a fat dude, black hair, bushy ass broom, bristle looking mustache, right? And he just looks at me and says, boy, go on up there and fetch my bags. And I'm from Florida, right? The Gulf Coast of Florida. They call it Lower Alabama. And where I'm from, boy is a racist word. And it triggered me instantaneously. I said, who the fuck are you talking to? Where I'm from, that's a racist ass word. So I don't give a damn. I'm a sergeant first class in United States Army. And if I tell you, boy, get your ass up there and get my bags, you go and fetch my bags. That's how my career started. And when I tell you it went downhill from there, bruh, it went downhill because I did not give a damn, right? And I just had that thing about me, right? Like, you're not going to bully me. It's not gonna happen. And I stood my ground. Obviously, as a private, it didn't really work out, in my behalf, but they knew where I stood with them, and they knew where they stood with me. And the line was drawn in the sand, and I never got those bags. What I did get was frostbite, though, because it was December in Virginia in the woods, and I had no cold weather gear. Because I went straight from reception, straight to the field, because I was just supposed to meet everybody and go back. That didn't happen. They kept me out there, and I ended up damn near getting hypothermia and frostbite. And so when I did go back, we got to the barracks, and they were like, we don't really have any rooms right now, but you guys can park in the day room, and then we'll have it sorted out when you get back. I went to the day room. The day room was the barracks storage room, and there was just mattresses piled to the ceiling, right? There's bed frames just all tore. Nothing was put together. They were like, just figure out what works, and then, it's just for tonight. Just lay on that, and then we'll get you to the airport in the morning. Okay, so me and my roommate at the time, like, what the hell? And we sorted out. We just essentially just threw the mattresses on the floor, got some sleep. I was cold as hell. And the next day we get up, nobody's there except for the first sergeant who wasn't in the field. He was on the track to retirement, so he just stayed back. And we go down there and we're looking for anybody, and he's the only one there. And he was like, "Come on in, young bloods. Y'all are new, blah, blah, blah. I'm first sergeant, so-and-so." He's like, "First sergeant, like, you know, we're still good order and discipline, like, about us and stuff." And he was nice. He was like, "Yeah, I was told, like, you know, you guys were around and I'm going to give you a ride." He's like, "Okay, well, we need to go to the airport, blah, 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 and be there at this time." Yeah, no problem, no problem. And what we didn't know was he had a single cab Ford Ranger, right? It was 3 of us. And, you know, him plus me and my buddy, and he got a stick shift, you know, and my buddy Donnie, he's like sitting in the middle. This dude's like shifting in between his legs. This dude's chain smoking. He's got the Ford Ranger with the electronic windows that don't even work. So he's hotboxing us in the damn truck. And now we're smelling like smoke. Like, he's just, you know, he's got yellow eyes. He was like raised by Vietnam vets. You know, he was like, you know, shell shock, Desert Storm dude and all this other stuff. And we got to the airport, got out, and then, you know, we were talking like, what the hell? What are we doing? You know, so long story short, we get back. I spent the next 3 years on details. And when I mean details, like, I was cutting grass, painting lines. I had screwdrivers, getting the damn weeds out of the cracks, like any demeaning task you can think of. I raked leaves, I freaking, like, you name it. That's what they had me doing, because, again, that's where the line was drawn in the sand. I wasn't putting up with their shit, but they did what they wanted to within the realms of what they could do, right? So I'm a private, I'm gonna do private work. So I push lawnmowers, weed eaters, you know, rake lead, like so many stupid things. And for 3 years. And nobody ever checked on me. You know, leadership changed out, I guess, because when I did finally come back 3 years later, is because I quit a detail. I legit just quit. You know, I told the NCOIC, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to my unit. You know, he tried to cuss me out, tell me I'm a soldier. I can't just quit, blah, blah, blah. I was like, screw it, I'm out. And I went back to my unit. By the time I got back to my unit, they were waiting on me. And I met my new platoon sergeant, which I don't even remember his name either. But he was like, "Hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm your new platoon sergeant. I took over for Sergeant Smith, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry about it. You know, I understand what's going on. Let me do all the talking in First Sergeant's office. I'll work it out." We get in there, this dude throws me straight under the bus, right? Like, and the First Sergeant's like just yelling at me like, "Blah, blah, blah. You're a private. You can't do." And when he was done, he was like, "What do you got to say?" And then I went off. They haven't checked on me in years. Like, I've been in this unit this long. You know, I'm a PV2 still, right? 3 years as a PV2, because they didn't even know who I was to promote me or advance me, right? Like, that type of stuff. And he was amazed and appalled at the same time that could even happen. He cussed me out, but then he threw me out, and then he cussed them out, right? But what he did say was, with the attitude I had, this and that, and quitting the detail, like I was wrong, blah, 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 whatever. I'll never get promoted. And I was like, cool, but you're gonna pay me to get out, because I already knew what my retention control point was. Like, you're gonna compensate me for not advancing, right? And that didn't sit well with them. And they gave me PFC, no no ceremony. It was just like, here, put this on. I was like, whatever. But, and then as time went on, they switched out soon after that. And this first sergeant, his name was Eubanks. And Eubanks, he was different. And he was a real leader. He really took care of people. And he wanted to put people in positions to win. And he came down to the boat that I was working on. And I'm out there just doing my thing, right? I'm not talking with anybody. I didn't get along with anybody. I just did my job. I just did it well. And I just did my thing. I didn't play those games. And I'm sitting on the back of the boat, and we're underway. We're out at, I think, in the James River or something like that. And he was like, how long have you been here? I was like, First Sergeant, I've been here a little over 3.5 years. He was like, and you're only a PFC? Like, what happened? Did you get in trouble? Nope. He was like, well, what's the deal? I was like, well, if I knew that, I'd probably be a specialist or maybe even a sergeant right now. He's like, it's got to be something. I was like, no. And I told him the story, the same one I just told you. He was like, that's bullshit. And the very next month, on the 1st, pinned me to specialist. But what he did do at the same time was he made me a squad leader in my platoon. He gave me my own soldiers as a brand new specialist. And I was the only specialist squad leader in the company. What he wanted was to remotivate me to re-enlist and stay. Because he told me straight up, he was like, you're a soldier. You're exactly what we need. And I want to send you to the board to become an NCO. I wasn't having it. I didn't want nothing to do with it. I was getting out. My mind was made up. I'm done. And, with that, he tried his damnedest. And I applaud him. But through my frustrations, I tried to go seek some help. And, things like that, behavioral health or issues were frowned upon. There wasn't a whole lot of support for that. And I was told I could go see a chaplain and talk to a chaplain about anything and no repercussions. So I go and talk to a chaplain. Well, I tried. I talked to the chaplain assistant, because he asked. He was like, can I help you? I was like, I don't know. I want to see the chaplain. He was like, for what? I was like, I got some issues. I got some stuff I need to talk about. He's like, well, can you tell me? I was like, I don't know. I think he was like a staff sergeant or something. And I was like, look, I'm frustrated. Leadership sucks. Unit sucks. This is not what I thought the Army was going to be. There's no cohesion, no teamwork. Everybody's just out to get you, blah, blah, blah. And it was pretty racist, really racist, actually, back in the day. My squad leader, white, power, SS lightning bolts right here, right? That was the type of racism. It was very open. It was very blatant. And he was a skinhead. And he wasn't even the problem, though. Like, you knew where you stood with him, but the rest of them, they were undercover. And that was the problem. Because it'd be passive-aggressive BS that came with being a minority in that organization. And, I tell him all this stuff. And he was like, well, what are you going to do about it? I was like, what the hell can I do? I'm a private. I'm a special, I'm like lower enlisted. He was like, nah, you can influence change at your level. You can influence change at every level. He's like, well, what are you doing to get promoted to change it at the next level? And that really resonated with me. And I've carried that with me the rest of my career, right? Because though I can't change the things I can't control, I can change my circumstances. I can change the people around me, the energy around me, I can change. And that's what I did, you know. Lo and behold, I got out, but I kept that. I kept that with me, you know, and I keep it with me today. And I don't even remember his name either, you know, but that's always stuck with me, that I can change where I'm at and I can affect what I can affect, and I should, for the sake of everybody else. But, you know, I got out and I didn't have a plan. I wasn't well prepared. All my eggs were in one basket. I went and I tried to get a job on the water when I went home, and the Coast Guard didn't recognize my Marine certification. And I knew right then, like, I was in trouble, because I didn't plan to do anything else. And, you know, what they told me was I could go and retest through the Coast Guard, get my certifications, my tonnage license is what they call it. And, you know, it would cost me, you know, $500 or $600 at the time, which I didn't have. So that was non-question. I wasn't going to be a deckhand. I wasn't going to just work on a boat, because I already did that. You know, I already had my license. I did it better than the warrant officers that was on those boats. And they used to keep me up there to do the job as a private, as a specialist, you know. To the day I got out, they only wanted me in the bridge, because I knew exactly what I was doing, and I could do it better than most of them. And, you know, that's kind of how my chapter started and ended, my first 4 years in the Army. So after that, I went into the reserves. But I'm going to save the reserves for chapter 2. And I'm going to tell you right now, my time in the reserves wasn't much better. So stay tuned. Chapter 2. Let's go.